Welcome back to Shorty Girl Right Power Session. I'm your host, Darian.
And I'm Stephanie Bradley Blue, and we're glad to have you here with us today. We're excited to be reviewing our topic from last week and doing a part two. So glad you're joining us.
Definitely. You know, everybody who's tuning in already know we got in hot and heavy. It got in. We went over an hour in here. With
Yeah, it was good.
it was good. It was good. It was good. People was was really detailed in their answers, and it went where it went. But it was great advice through and through. The topic still: what advice would you give your younger self? Um, with last week we talked about finances, we talked about relationships, and pretty much having children at a younger age. Would you still do it? With all that said, I have a question for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
How
Okay.
many of y'all, how many of y'all wish you've listened to your parents, maybe your aunt, uncle, grandparents, godparents, was dropping jewels at an early age, and you find yourself just not listening?
That was a good one.
Now, before you answer, because I know you're just thinking, before you answer, keep that mindset. Would you listen? Would your younger self listen to you? All the advice we given, you go back, like we said,
Mm,
what advice would you give your younger self? Would your younger self listen to you?
that's a good question.
Yeah. Sometimes we take for granted uh, the wisdom that our parents, godparents had.
Mm-hmm.
Now we wish that we could pick their brain. We wish we can ask them just one more question, that we can just shoot, make that phone call and just hear them say hello. Uh, we know for most of us, we're a hard person to get through to, all right?
Hmm.
So being what we talked about last week, with all that said, not only would you give your younger self advice on finances, relationships, having children, things of that nature, but this week we're gonna go a little bit further. How would you get through to your younger self to make them listen to you?
Mm.
We got a lot of eyes, like I don't know, right? How would you get through to your younger self to make them listen? I remember when I was a drill sergeant, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a quick rundown. I remember when I was a drill sergeant. Um, the I had the post general's son in my platoon. He's the, and I got on him saying, I don't care who your daddy is. You about to go through the same training your daddy went through,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on him like, like crazy the whole time. When he graduated, I remember the general coming up to me. And when we started talking, we realized, we run past each other every morning, go to the gym every morning, things of that nature. But still, one thing that stuck out that he said to me, he said, yo, son Brian, I am the post general, and my son don't even listen to me,
Mm-hmm.
but he can't stop bragging about you. No matter what I tell him, it going one end out the other. Now I'm pretty sure people out there watching on the panel, we all know that with our kids. You got people at school, you got people with your therapist, your counselor, people listen to you all day, but your own kids won't listen.
Hmm.
Well, that's usually the case.
Yeah, that's usually the case. And we was the same way when we were younger, right? So in regards to taking care of yourself, many people have trouble being kind to themselves,
Hmm.
right? So what advice would you give your younger self, and how would you make them listen on being kind to themselves, always knowing they worth, things of that nature? What advice would you give, and
So
how
we're
would you
gonna
get
so we're gonna answer that question or the other question, the gym
both
question.
both
You
both
do both at
both?
one time?
Yes, pretty much. uh how would you get through to them
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
know their self-worth? How would you ensure that they listen?
Steph, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I mean, it's an interesting question for me. I think I have, like, when I talked about my dynamic a little bit last week, and I think that my dynamic is unique to some degree because my parents were married for 52 years. My
Mm-hmm.
mom had 9 brothers and sisters, 8 brothers and sisters, and they all, for the most of my upbringing, lived very close to one another. And
Okay.
Hmm.
so I spent 2 to 3 weekends out of the month, we were together as an entire family. So I was raised like with my first cousins, like they were like my brothers and sisters as well. My aunt lived about 10 miles away. I had an uncle that lived right around the corner. When we went to my grandparents, my other aunt lived around the corner from them.
Right.
And my mom made weekly visits to my grandparents' house with us all. So
Mm-hmm.
we were very engaged as a family and a community.
Mm-hmm.
My father took 2 weeks off every summer and we drove to Tennessee because his family was from that area and had not moved. And we spent that time with them. So we were very, very, very engaged with family. Um, and honestly, I think every person has to go through a season of rebellion or pushback. Like there's a season in every child will be go through that. And for me, I think another unique thing for me was that I didn't really experience that until I turned about 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty compliant. I was a good old church girl. I started ministry really early age. My mom told me I started like reading the Bible when I was 9. Like I
Mm-hmm.
had um, I had an affinity for God and this kind of fear of that and a need to please like my parents and my family because they were such a big part of my life. So um, rebellion didn't hit for me until much older, which I think is worse. but um, but I didn't go too far. It was weird because even though it happened for me older, I didn't go but so far out in my life
Mm-hmm.
because that just wasn't my foundation.
Right.
Um, so I think my perspective about it will be a little different than others because of that major influence of
Mm-hmm.
family and participation. And there was always a check and balance. I really grew up with that very close knit check and balance. So if I didn't feel comfortable talking to my mom, I could always, my sister's 14 years older than me. I could always go to my sister. I could always go to one of my cousins or my family members that were older. Like we were always encouraged in that way. My uncles and I had really great relationships when I was young. So I always had them as well. And so I think to answer the first part of your question, I think I was a little bit more pliable as a young person to listen and more prone to listen because I had these outlets and experience, in this very large, close community
Right.
that was family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I know as a single mother, after still making choices that were probably not the best for myself, um, one of the things I had to get comfortable with because my oldest son, his father was not a participant in his life at all ever, um, was the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to be willing to let other people, as a parent, and my son got older, to not get angry because he wasn't listening to me, but to keep people in his circle, um, in his life, or to introduce him to, or allow him the outlet and the opportunity to meet people who were wiser than him, and be okay with them being the person that he talked to. And I think a lot of times as parents, that's where we struggle, right? Is we want our kids to talk to us. And so when they don't, we take it personal and we feel some kind of way. I didn't have, like I said, I didn't grow up necessarily with that happening for me, and I didn't do that with my children. So, because I just knew that they weren't going to listen. Because, I think it's just prone. We're just not always conditioned to do that. And we have autonomy is a part of development. Like when you get to a
Mm-hmm.
particular age, it's a
Mm-hmm.
stage in childhood development. So part of you establishing some sense of autonomy about yourself outside of your community requires some rebellion. And I think,
Mhm.
that's when we go through that phase of not listening. If I could tell my younger self, um, what would I do to tell me to listen? Mm, nothing. I don't think it was anything. I don't think it's anything you can do. Even as a therapist, though, one of the things we learn is rapport. You have to trust the person.
Mhm.
You
Right.
know. So I guess one of the things I would do is do the best I could to build trust
Mhm.
and to show myself as a person of integrity and trustworthy.
Mhm.
And um, I think that would be the only thing I would do and could do
Right.
to convince my younger self.
Mm-hmm. What
Okay.
you got, Candace?
So we're similar. I have a way smaller family.
Hmm.
Like my dad only has one sister. My mom doesn't have any siblings. So my family was really small, but I was always with my grandma, my great grandma. Like they lived a street across from each other. You know, you walk around the block, you can go to the family. So for me, I kind of grew up under them. My sister and brother are 7 and 5 years older than me. So I had that gap, but I could go to them with stuff. So, and I had like I think my village was helpful in my upbringing, because once I got older, my sister and brother were pretty much grown. So they ain't had time for me. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
It was coaches then for me. I know I went to like NYSP, Darian, sorry.
NYSP was the joint right there. I remember them days.
But, you know, the counselors that were there, you know, were people that I still look up to, and I still talk to them when I see them. So for me, I always had really good relationships with older people. So for me, I felt like I was an old soul. So
me too.
I never really rebelled because I was too scared to get in trouble, to make anybody look bad. So I did stuff, don't get me wrong, but I was always where I was supposed to be. I was a good kid, I guess, of my brother and my sister. I was going to do what I was supposed to do. So I always listened to the things. I might not have listened as much as I would like to have back then, but now I see what they're saying. And if I ever got in a situation, I'd be like, my grandma always told me that, you know, so I would remember it. So I did listen, I think, more than most. So I don't think that really applies to me or whatever. But as far as talking to my younger self and how I would get my younger self, I told y'all last week, I feel like I get to practice on my students. So I take them as my younger self. I always use them. Oh, you're my younger self? Yes. Been there, done that, got a t-shirt. So I use the auntie. I always say I'm the auntie teacher. So an auntie to me is like a cooler person. You know what I'm saying? They're a little more down to earth, but they still gonna give it to you straight. So I always use that vibe with my kids. And it works well with them because they feel like they can trust me. They can come to me, they can talk to me about whatever. So regardless of how stern I am, they know that auntie is still kind of laugh and joke, but you can't play with auntie any kind of way. You know what I'm saying? So they have the respect for me, but they still listen. And I always tell them, you might not listen today, but in 5 years, you're going to be like, Coach Rainey told me that. Now, she told me that. So I always drop the gems regardless of if they listen, because I feel like at some point in time, they're going to remember what you said. So I don't want to be that one to say, well, I didn't know. No, you heard it from me. You know what I'm saying? So I drop it, whether they pick it up right now or not. I'm always a dropper of gems. So I'm going to keep giving it to the kids till they can't hear it anymore. So they probably tired of me, but it's okay. We're going to keep dropping.
I get that.
Can I say one more thing while we're talking about it? And it's so interesting because now it just dawned on me. My children didn't have that same experience. And so it's interesting, right? Because when you have that experience and you kind of grow up with this level of maturity and I was an old soul too, sis. Like I always, like, I didn't even like kids. Like I didn't want to watch cartoons with my sisters when they were kids. Like I did. Go downstairs at 6 o'clock for what? I'm not doing that. Like I was an old whole soul as a kid. I wanted to watch Kung Fu theater, and you know, I just was my mind was never really a kid mind. I don't think I ever had a super kid mind. But because my kids didn't have that experience of community like I did, and those voices and those options, right? Like I had, you know, I do see their rebellion a lot earlier. You know, and I see their disconnect from the words of wisdom and their deep sense of immaturity about certain things. And so, you know, I think that that's an interest, you know, just an interesting observation overall. Because, like I said, my children didn't have those experiences. We weren't, you know, I didn't make them like a lot of the experiences that I had growing up, even with going to church every. We didn't have like we were a Christian family, and had Christian values in our home, but my parents were also not restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You know, we were able to do things like you can go out Saturday night if you want, just be ready to get up in the morning for Sunday school. So like
Mm-hmm.
we learned that, you know, we'll let you make choices. We'll let you make these choices,
Right.
but these are still the expectations. My children didn't have that, like
Mm-hmm.
growing up. Those expectations and those choices had loosened up a lot by the
Mm-hmm.
time I had children, and my experience in those spaces as a community and a church community at large had changed so drastically that
Mm-hmm.
that's not what my kids experienced.
Right.
Saturday choir rehearsal, Friday night service, Sunday all day. Like that
Right.
was never their experience, but it was my experience in that community, whether we agree with what the community taught or not. It was my
Mm-hmm.
experience with that community of people and that information that came from that community that really helped shape me. And the fact that it taught me, you know, particular boundaries
Yeah.
and things. And like I said, my children didn't grow up with that,
Mm-hmm.
right? I didn't make them go as they got older, like stuff like what I was asked to do. Those things I didn't put on my children to do. But they're also a lot more immature and incapable of
Right.
hearing that wisdom. And it's something that it was happening naturally. You know, people was dropping nuggets around us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think my kids are blessed because they still have the great grandma and two grandmas. And I make sure that they spend that time because I know that's where I got a lot of my gems, and it's stuff that they can teach them that I can never teach them. And it's
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
patience that they have that I don't have right this minute. But they're the ones that should teach them some of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I make sure that they get plenty of time with them. I wish they had more time with their granddads, but
Yeah.
you know, they did have that time too. But um definitely involve a lot of coaches and stuff in my daughter's life. She's 17, but I know I coach too. So I know she get tired of hearing me coach. Like, hey mom, can you just be mom right now? Don't be coach now. Can you just be mom? We're home. You know, so I make sure I allow other coaches to come in and coach her as well so that she doesn't always hear my voice. Cause I know my voice sounds like blah, blah, blah after a while. So
Wah, wah.
yeah, exactly. I make sure she gets it from enough other people so that she doesn't get bored with me. And I know it takes a village, so I'll allow everybody. Everybody's gonna teach her a little something different. So I make sure to keep that kind of open for her. Um, you know, and my kids, both of them. So,
I completely get it. You know, me personally, you know, I'm the baby of 17. Um, my mom and father had 17 kids, 8 boys, 9 boys. I'm sorry, they had 8 boys, 8 girls. I came out and made the even, so they had 9 boys and 8 girls. But um, I was very rebellious, but I also had an old mom. You
Yeah.
mm,
know, so you know, she had said I was number 17. So when I came out, you know, mother was tired. You know, so I got away with murder all the time. You feel me? I got away with murder all the time, and it wasn't a fact about not listening. I just was slow to move on it, which is just as bad anyway. You know what I'm saying? I listened. Uh, uh, I was acting like I didn't listen, but best believe I could spit it back to what they said to me verbatim. You know,
mm,
but I got brothers and sisters 20, 30 years my senior. You know, so they was off, you know, living their own life by the time I came out. You know, I had brothers in Germany and whatever else when I was being born. You know,
mm,
so I just I came up different. You know, and the same thing you guys said too. Old soul. Like my mom is like some of you guys' grandparents. You know, if
mhm,
my mom was alive today, she'd be 90 years old. My
mhm,
pops would be 100. You know,
Wow.
so I'm from an old family, but I learned how I learned is from, and and they know this guy. I used to always tell them all the time. I learned from my brothers and sisters making mistakes.
me too.
That's
Yeah,
how I learned. And you say too, when you got a lot of older siblings and stuff, you know what not to do.
absolutely.
You know what not to do. You know how they crippled or how they messed up. You like, okay. And my mom used to always be like this, hey. You know, you don't just have to learn from your mistakes, you can learn from other people's mistakes. So
Mhm.
that's how I learn, and that's how I will get through to my younger self too, bringing up things that he already have learned, or things. Oh, watch this right quick. See this, see that, see. You know, now we got to move on. See, some of us already know, and some of us out there, we got to learn stuff the hard way. It ain't got to be like that all the time. You know, that's that kid right now who got to get hit by that Mack truck. They got to run into a wall. You
Right.
know, but sometimes it might be too late. You know, you might make that wrong mistake that's gonna cost you everything. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? You want, they always say, what, you one mistake away from the worst decision, but you could be one mistake away from having the world in your fingertips. You
Right.
know, you choose. So I would say that's how I will probably get through to my younger self, and go over past experiences and things of that nature, and see if I can get to them. Like you said, loyalty is everything, you know, and that's how I came up too. So I will be a hard shell to crack. I know
Mhm.
that my younger self was like, whatever, bro. You know, so I know definitely I'll be a hard shell to crack. But that's how I will get through to my younger self. In the area of being kinder to yourself, and always knowing your worth, how
Mhm.
would you relay that to your younger self?
I was going to say that another interesting observation and a variant that I see in our community,
Mm-hmm.
especially growing up, we got those truths all the time, um, but it wasn't something that we always saw practiced.
Right.
So we were told, don't do this,
Right.
but it wasn't something in practice in our community. We were just told not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I just think that that makes you more curious.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, well, why not?
You don't
Yeah.
Apparently,
why.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no explanation to it sometimes, and and I think,
It was always because I said so. You
right,
know.
Yeah.
because there was no
That's
really, and I think I think that that's something that exists in our community largely because they didn't always have the answers to why
yeah.
you don't
Mhm.
do something or know how to
Yeah.
necessarily communicate particular behaviors. But we know with any child is um, redundance, repetitiveness, and practice is what creates better behavior
Facts.
Mhm.
or healthy behavior or healthy
Mm-hmm.
disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
And we were given a lot of information a lot of times, but just
Mhm.
not any understanding with it. Like,
Mhm.
why you go to work and you ain't got no money?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you ain't sitting down teaching me how to do no budget.
Mhm.
Well, you
Mm-hmm.
just tell me save your money. I'm like, how you do that? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? No
Yeah.
one answered the question really on how to do that.
Because
We
they
were
didn't
told that we
know.
should do that, and what
Yeah.
and what when we do the wrong thing, that's an irresponsible behavior. But
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
no one actually sat down and said, well, this is a budget.
Mm-hmm.
This is what a budget looks like. This is
Yeah,
what
Right.
you be doing with your
it's
life.
like a lot of people was running their own companies back then too, but they wasn't doing it the right way.
Right.
Right.
You know, they just had their own thing going on. They weren't paying taxes and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, like, I completely agree with what you're saying. You know,
Hmm.
Yeah.
but continue. Sorry.
My grandmother was the queen of colloquialisms. Like she always, my aunt to this day, I told her she needed to write a book. Like my grandmother always like was the person that someone had when baby, two in the bush is more than one in the hand. I'd be like, huh? Like, you know what I mean? But she was the queen of that. Like she would come up with
Mm-hmm.
the applicable like saying
Yep.
Mhm.
for the situation. And
Mhm.
you had to be a good thinker to know what she was talking about. And then if you asked her, she may explain it to you. But the assumption was that she was going to get it if you thought about it long enough. You know what I
Mhm.
Right.
mean? You can those things come back to your mind as time goes on. But we weren't. It wasn't mirrored for us. It wasn't put. It wasn't always something that we were forced to practice in a
Right.
Right.
healthy way. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of times it left us more curious than
Mhm.
fulfilled. And for many of us, I think I know a lot of my mishaps in life were largely out of curiosity. Just like,
Mhm.
what you talking about, Willis?
Right.
Like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go do
Yeah.
that. Just to see.
Exactly.
Because it was always
Mm-hmm.
because I said so.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
now you have to explain why you shouldn't do something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You,
And
you have to explain it to these kids. If not, it's
Mhm.
yeah, they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean, and I explain all the time. You know, back in the days, it was like you said, because I said so. Don't touch the stove. And we still touch the stove. And when we got burnt, then let's see, didn't I tell you don't touch the stove?
Right.
But you didn't tell me why I shouldn't touch the
Yeah,
stove.
you
Right.
create a
You
mystery
just
when you
said
said that.
it's a mystery. Yeah, it's a mystery. You know what I'm
Like,
saying? Don't go over there. You know,
but
so
you,
I agree with you. I would definitely tell myself, my younger self, don't dwell on the past. Just because it's that way doesn't mean it will always be that way again.
right.
You know, a lot of us have a hard time letting go of what used to be, you know, and that will stop us from moving forward. So it can really slow your growth. So that's one thing I would definitely relate to my younger self as well. What do you guys think about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, life is a process,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what makes success fulfilling is failure. Like,
Facts.
you know, you done jacked up a few times, and then when you finally experience some sense of success, no matter how great or small,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's definitely a confidence booster, and it helps you to move forward, right? So
Mm-hmm.
life is definitely progressive, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to um, get to the point where you are able to look at your younger self and all of their mistakes as an adult, and even to be able to speak to them and realize that you did what you give yourself the same grace, and be kind to yourself, right? Like you were saying earlier,
Mm-hmm.
because you did the best with what you had,
Mm-hmm.
and so um, you know, it's a difficult, you know, it's the journey of in the process in which we, and like I left off saying last week about your experiences. Every experience creates a process of thinking and your value systems and your beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately you behave accordingly to that value system and that belief system.
Right.
And a lot of times we don't allow ourselves to take uh, to have other experiences, and so we don't ever
Mm-hmm.
change those behaviors, and we
Mm-hmm.
never shift our values. And the other thing I was, you know, that I've been really journeying through as an adult right now is unlearning.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
giving myself permission to unlearn,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
because there are some things that you have to unlearn in order for you to grow and to
Mm-hmm.
be better,
Mm-hmm.
that you've been putting in practice for so long. Even in speaking to your younger self, like I would tell my younger self that everything that you experience and you go through or you take in and ingest, what way it may have worked for you when you were 10, 15, 20, 25, is not going to work at 40. And you're going to have to unlearn that practice in order for you to
Mm-hmm.
prosper.
Yeah, because what you're sharing with your younger self is learned lessons.
Hmm.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's what you're doing. You're sharing, learn what you've already learned. Hey, listen, don't go through this because this is what happened with through the whole time. This is why we were slow in this area. This is why we didn't grow in this area. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
This will make you better and over here. You know, that's the process. That's the reason why we're giving our younger self advice, because it's the lessons we've learned.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yes. I would also tell my younger self to sit back and actually just take notes when you're younger of all the things you don't like, but it's stuff you can't control, like stuff you see in your house growing up. Because if you think if your lights got cut off, or if mama was always broke, or if there was a lot of yelling in your house, if you witness those things, like take those things into your grown life and how can I fix those things? Like learn to make those things better with your life. You know what I'm saying? Learn how to communicate. You don't have to
Mm,
always, you know what I'm saying? Okay, what did mama do wrong to be broke? What did she do
mhm,
so my lights didn't get cut off? You know what I'm
mm,
saying? Those things, even if you got to figure out how to budget yourself,
mhm,
okay, let me be better with my money because I don't want to go through that. I don't want
mhm,
to me or my kids. You know what I'm saying? So take those little lessons and all the things that you saw, or your friends, you know what I'm saying? Get to know your circle. Like be selective about your circle and the people that you
mhm.
deal with and stuff like that. Sometimes those are the reasons why you don't do the things that you want to do in life. You might have had dreams, but your friends didn't have those dreams. So,
Say that
oh,
again. Yep, you're right.
you know what I'm saying? So but because your circle was your circle, you didn't know how to break from your circle. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Observe everything around you and take notes from that. And you can be different from your friends and still be friends, but learn how to separate yourself from that and still do what it is that you want to do. And plan, have a plan. I preach that to my kids all the time now. Like, I feel like if you have a plan, it's harder to get somebody off track that has a plan. You
Yeah,
know,
you're right.
the kids that I talk to in ninth grade that say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this kind of doctor, more than likely they're going to be that kind of doctor because they've already said it. They know, I'm going to this school, I'm going to this, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you see them later on and they do that. But they had a plan. So it's hard for them to get off track with this guy over here. Or, you know what I'm saying, or take the wrong turn or something like that. So I feel like it's important to have a plan and know exactly what it is that you want to do. So you can stay focused in life, so you can achieve what it is that you want to. So you don't have to do it wrong. To do it right. So
Can I put in a mental health moment? Maybe we have to start interjecting these on a regular basis when I have those moments. But a mental health moment in reference to what you were saying, because a lot of times people have those negative experiences, right? And as a child, they don't process it well. So it's, I mean, so it's one thing to, you know, as you get older and you have those experiences. But when you're having those experiences as a child and you're not thinking to, you know, write it down and say, I never want to do this.
Right.
9 times out of 10, it's not being processed well, and it serves as a space of it could in many instances when you're experiencing that all the time and constantly, by the time you become old enough to even consider writing that down or whatever, it's become a form of trauma,
Right.
or you know. And so my mental health moment would be that two key things, right? The greatest thing that we can do beside being kind to ourselves is learn how to accept certain things, right? There's a level of acceptance we have to operate with in life because struggle is going to happen. And the idea that everything will be wonderful because I make this one right choice is not realistic. So we have to learn to kind of accept, because life is going to blow on our houses.
Right.
And whatever tools we built the house with, it's going to be the determinant as to whether or not we can stand, right?
Absolutely.
So acceptance is really, really important. And also being intentional, like you said, with the goal setting thing. It's not just, you know, and it's great to articulate those things, but every year as you kind of move through life and you get older and you start to, you know, really start to find out what your interests are, be a self-seeking individual where you understand who you are, what your interests are, so that you can be intentional about what you're going to do. Because if we focus on all of the stuff that happened, then oftentimes we'll leave away feeling bitter and resentful and having all of these other things that cloudy us and distract us as time moves forward. So just as a mental health moment, and a lot of people are stuck in that space, and that's why they can't grow up and move forward, because they can't get out of the fact that mommy was always broke, or our lights were off every week, or she had, you know, I couldn't get nothing in my name at 20 because she had put the electricity in my name when I was 5. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, and those are things that really destroy, internally affect people moving forward in their lives, and they hold on to them. And there's, you know, there's very little growth when you allow yourself to just kind of hover or circle around spaces in your life. And there's unforgiveness and resentment and remembrance. Sometimes we just have to accept that that's what it was. And I've come to learn, like you said last week, it was really important too. It was very helpful for me as well, Kandis. Is if certain experiences had not happened for me, and some of them were horrendous, like I wouldn't wish them on anybody. Being a cancer survivor, it's a whole lot like it happened in my lifetime. But I wouldn't be the person I am today had I not had those experiences. But I also had to get to a place of acceptance in my life and realize that they don't define me. My mistakes don't define me. Bad behavior doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. You know, and so these are all things that over time we have to really begin to ingest and understand, so that we are healthy and balanced as we get older. So that was just my mental health moment.
Absolutely. But that's true though. I tell kids all the time that you don't have to, just because that's the way you grew up, that doesn't have to be your life. Make sure you pause You know what I'm saying? Just because your mom had you at 15, that don't mean you have to make that same exact mistake that she made. You know what I'm saying? Dot your I, cross your T. Make sure you don't do that. That doesn't have to be your same story. Don't make that accept it, but don't make that an excuse to why you do it. Well, this is what I saw. But you don't have to be that. I said some of the most successful people in the world had the worst upbringings. They were homeless. They went through all kinds of stuff. Their parents weren't around, and they still made it out. I said, so who's to say that's not you? You know what I'm saying? So don't use those and allow them to just hold you down and feel sorry for yourself. Just
You can allow yourself to be tethered.
absolutely.
Or you can allow yourself to soar, and that's a perspective. Like that's mindset shifting
Yes.
in a perspective. And the interesting thing I find about the generations that we have now, especially this pandemic bunch, is I feel like in speaking to them oftentimes, how do we get them untethered? Because they really are tethered to that experience or tethered to whatever broken things have happened in their lives, and it's difficult for them to kind of see beyond that and be intentional. So it is a work. It's hard. and I think it's our responsibility in this conversation. That's what makes this conversation so important.
I think that I agree with both of you. I think that as we come up, we tend to look at PTSD as just a military thing. It's we've all gone through things in life, and it's forms of traumatic stress. So it's with post-traumatic stress syndrome. But it's you can someone right now can get into a bad accident, car accident, and for the rest of their life they just don't want to drive on the highway again. That's a form of PTSD. The fact that your mom or father yelled at you at a young age, and now now as an adult, if someone just raises their voice, you crumble. That's a form of PTSD. It's and running from it and not addressing it and dealing with it is another problem as well. So we have to address it, whether it's definitely going out and seeking out and getting some help, going to a therapist, things of that nature. We have to address those things because they will forever cripple us or hold us back from us moving forward. I will also tell myself, talk about peer pressure. I was never one for peer pressure. If I did something, it's because I wanted to do it. But there's a lot of people who only took a sip of that alcohol because someone said something to them. Or you scared? They only smoked that weed because someone said, because you scared. I was always like, I don't care. I always said that I don't care attitude. Even my friends tell me to this day, like, bro, you always was, I just did my thing. I didn't care what y'all thought about me. I could fall right down and laugh at myself. I don't need you to laugh at me. I'm gonna laugh at myself. We're gonna laugh together. I thought it was funny. I'm cracking up. Did I just bust my butt? You know what I'm saying? I'm not. It's hard to embarrass me. I don't care. I don't feel embarrassed. Who's perfect? No one is. And I would tell that too to anyone. No one is. Also, don't be afraid to change. As well. There's people right now in their 40s and 50s that still date the same type of dude that they did when they was 16, or female that they did when they was 16. You know what I'm saying? And they wonder why they still got relationship issues. Change. There's people who are still accepting apologies from people who are not who don't have changed behavior. Keep your apology. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're gonna change what you're doing, or why you keep saying I'm sorry for it. You're not changing the type of person you are. You're still yelling. You're still doing this. You're still doing that. So keep your apology. Change behavior is the real thing, not just you saying I'm sorry. So that's a lot of things that I would definitely tell my younger self. And in hopes to get him to greatness, and I'm sure you guys would hope to get her to greatness. Also, like you spoke, Miss Stephanie, on adapt and overcome. Definitely, I will hit everything with the same mindset. We awfully, everything is like we practice. We say mindset, mindset, mindset. Staying positive is one of the biggest things that you can do. Out of everything, I would definitely tell myself to hunt for the good stuff. There's always something good that happened that day. I don't care if it was just the fact that you woke up and everything else went wrong after that. You still woke up. You know what I'm saying? Somebody else didn't. So no matter what, hunt the good stuff. And that hunt the good stuff for that is no matter what's, I don't care about no matter what went on, you can find one positive thing to stand on to take you to the next day.
Absolutely.
You can. And staying up at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, still harping on what happened is not healthy. You know what I'm saying? So definitely hunt the good stuff and let's move on. One last thing that we get out of here, guys. Regrets. You know, I think regret goes both ways. We are judged by what we do, but it's what we don't do that haunts us.
Yes.
We are judged by what we do, but it's what we don't do that haunts us.
Absolutely.
Let's speak on that real quick.
I mean, I don't have, I'm like you about certain things. I've never been super regretful. I think one of the things that has been a problem for me is guilt and shame.
There you go. Speak on it. I agree.
Regret in the sense that I when I look back on it, I was like, I never wish I would have done that. I don't think, I think more from the moment that it was done, what tends to come, especially in certain communities and people and stuff like that, the guilt and shame of it rests on you for so long, it changes the way you perceive yourself, right? And I often tell people, it's one thing to regret an experience and to be able, like I said, get up from that space and say, I wish I hadn't done that, and take responsibility for it, be accountable, accept, move forward. I think the greater weight oftentimes is not the regret piece. It's the fact that we'll have an experience or something will happen or a negative outcome, and we adopt so quickly. And socially it happens all the time as well, guilt and shame, right? So it's one thing to even be guilty and say, I did do that. That's something that I did. And I didn't like the fact that I did that. So guilty is being able to acknowledge that part. But shame is when something that you've done, you allow it then to define you.
Right.
There you go.
And you connect with it so deeply that it becomes a part of your person. And so it makes it difficult for you to have that positive thought, that positive outlook. And it just kind of weighs on you over time. So it's this almost like a constant regret. Like you're never not critical of yourself. You're never not kind of beating up on yourself. And I know for me, if I were to speak to my younger self, I would have explained what that was to myself so that I could experience things a little differently and think about myself a little differently growing up. I think shame was big for me.
Yeah.
And I carried it deeply. And so I never felt, once I start to work through that, there are things that I wish I didn't do. But now I realize, like I said, it was all for my making. It was necessary.
All happens for a reason.
Right.
Definitely. What you got, Kandis?
So I have had a couple. I think the only thing I really regretted in my whole entire life, I think regret wise, I had an opportunity to play basketball in college and I didn't take it. I didn't do it. And now that's something that really I wish I had did for even a year, just because now with my daughter going, I could have explained to her more. I didn't really have a reason why I didn't do it. I just didn't. But it was something I wish I had actually gone through the experience and did. I just felt like it took up too much time. It was cutting into my nap times. I just didn't want to. But I was big on my sleep. I was like, y'all want me to get up at 5:30. Y'all want me to do this. It's not fun anymore,
Right.
But I did it that 1 year because I had the opportunity. It's something now I can't go back and get, So I do wish I had done that, and because it's something I can use now and say, well, I did it, But that's the only thing I really regret, and it really kind of haunts me a little bit. I was like, I did it. I can't say I went to the CIAA. I can't say I played in it. You know, it's just something that really gets me. Guilt and shame, yes. Yeah, I have those moments. But like you said, they do shape you. And it was probably something I needed to go through. So yeah, that's it. I feel like you should do whatever it is that you need to do, so you don't have that regret feeling, because it is a little tough to when you can't get it back. So if you have the opportunity to do something, do it. Don't do it not do it because you're scared or because of the outcome of it. And I think we get stuck in that a lot of failing. We fear failing, and that's tough. But you can't succeed if you don't fail. So you have to take those opportunities. And even if you fall on your face, at least you know now what you need to do to make it better. You know what I'm saying? I was telling somebody the other day, talking about it, I was like, it's crazy how when we're babies and we learn to walk, we fall down 1,000,000 times, but we get up every single time and try it. And no matter how bad it hurt or anything, with no fear at all. But once it grown, it's, no, I ain't gonna do that. Nope.
And that's an example on not giving up. On if you don't give up, you're gonna make it.
Yeah, like you don't learn the fear. You don't learn the fear. You're not afraid. Like that fear when you're like that is not the same. Like that innate, like that's something I believe is learned, right? You learn to be afraid. And fear is not a bad thing all the time, right?
No.
It definitely helps you with safety. But it's not something we have learned. So if you were, I think it's a perfect analogy, because it's also an example of how we don't know to be afraid about falling.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So we don't mind
we
what
have
we do.
A little longer.
Yeah, I mean, y'all might not like what I'm about to say, but so when I used to teach my kids how to ride a bike, I used to make them fall on purpose. So they knew. I used to, for real, I push them down. Hey, there you go, boom, because they be riding all nervous and scared, and they didn't want to fall, and I'll make them fall. We'll be in the grass, but I'll make them fall. And then I say, now you good? Wipe yourself off. See, it wasn't bad, right? No, it wasn't bad. All right, now you know what falling is. Do you want to fall again? No, I don't want to fall again. Okay, well, get on and ride a bike. And you know what they did? You think they fell again? They didn't.
They did.
They didn't. That's real talk. Both of them never fell again off that bike. Once they fell and they got all scarred up and stuff, they stayed on that daggone bike. Or guess what? They put that foot down to brace them.
Yeah.
They made sure they never fell again.
They caught themselves. Yeah.
They caught themselves. You feel what I'm saying? And that's what we need to do. We need to catch ourselves. We learn from our mistakes. Don't give up because you failed 10, 12, 20 times. Who knows? This time might be the one.
Right. Exactly.
When you're getting back up now, you know more than what you know before. The first 19 times when you fell down. You feel what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Who cares? You feel me? Don't give up. Continue to try. And that's what's wrong with us. We tend to give up too easy in this world. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Period. Period. Point blank. All right. Point blank. We are quick to give up, and because it comes too easy. It comes too easy. There's so many businesses out here that have went bankrupt hundreds of times, but they kept going. And they're billion-dollar industries. Right.
It's crazy because if we talk to like a Jay-Z or something, or Tyler Perry, there's billionaires now. And we're like, I lost a couple $1 million before I made $1 billion. And we spent $500 because we like, I ain't trying to lose $500. But if that $500 is gonna make you $100,000, we won't take that risk. But they said they lost $1 million. Everybody lost $5 million, but now they're billionaires. But they took that risk. They weren't scared to take that risk, and we won't sell for, you know what I'm saying, $1,000 for something small.
Exactly. But you spoke on two people who put all the risk on them, who put all the ducks behind them, who invested in themselves. Tyler Perry was living out his daggone car. Who says, okay, since y'all ain't gonna help me out, I'm gonna do it my way, and I don't care if I gotta live out my car to get there. I'm gonna do it. No one wanted to sign Jay-Z, so Jay-Z signed himself. Tyler Perry signed themselves. You know what I'm saying? Now all the people who was back then was like, oh wow, we really missed out on this opportunity. But still, it all boils down to what? They didn't give up.
Right.
They kept pushing. You feel what I'm saying? They kept pushing. So that's another thing. Definitely do not give up. It's too easy. Let's hit with the final thoughts, and then we're up out of here. So what y'all got? What y'all got for the people?
To stay right where you guys were, and I think just a closing thought is just like, you got to be willing to take a risk, right? And you've got to be willing to move forward despite what you're experiencing. And it's all according to what you value and what's important to you. I think one of the things that young people need to know, and what I would have told my younger self, is for every sacrifice, there is a reward.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so not to be afraid to make the sacrifices necessary, because it's not going to be like that always. I think, you know, we get stuck in the mindset. Like one of the things as a young person is they get stuck. Like, and this is what it's going to be. No, it's not. The wonderful thing about life is it continues to move forward. Time does not cease, and things continue to move forward. And where my dad used to say, as long as you can breathe, you can change it. So
I like that. There you go.
Yeah.
What you got, Candy?
Just be mindful, forgive yourself. You're gonna make mistakes, but don't be afraid to take the risk, because you're gonna get it right eventually. It's gonna be hard, but you're gonna get it right. Sometimes you just gotta fall on your face in order to wake up to make it right. Don't let the hard days win. We're gonna have them, but if you make it through those hard days and look back at what was good in those days, it's gonna push you to go further. And be kind to yourself. Like, nobody makes it alive. Like, nobody makes it out alive. So be kind to yourself. Like, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna make mistakes, and it is okay. Just don't accept the mistakes, but grow from them. Don't be afraid to grow and heal from it.
True. I agree. I agree with both of y'all. Don't accept defeat.
Right.
Embrace your mistakes. Learn to love yourself first and foremost. If you don't love yourself, how you gonna love someone else? And learn from your mistakes and other people's mistakes. Sometimes you don't have to mess up to learn something. So definitely learn from other people's mistakes. And last but definitely not least, I don't care how many times you got to fall down. You fall down 10 times, get up 11. Whatever it is, just keep pushing. All right. And at the end of the day, you're going to be all right. All right. As always, it's about the community. All right. We love y'all. Y'all take it easy.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Ready. We ready. We ready for y'all.